After the SATs, my whole family went to the beach for a vacation. My sister, Zoe, forgot her favorite swimsuit and demanded I make the 2-hour drive back home to get it. When I refused, my dad slapped me so hard my mouth bled. My mom blamed me, saying I should have reminded my sister, so it was my job to go get it. I was so hurt I broke down, sobbing hysterically. My parents called me a jinx and locked me in the vacation condo to reflect. When the 300-foot tsunami hit, I had no way to escape. I was swallowed alive by the waves. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in that moment, with Zoe demanding I drive home to get her swimsuit. I nodded meekly. Okay, I'll go get it. You guys have fun at the beach. Chloe, hurry up and go home to get my swimsuit. The blue one. I want to wear it in the water. The familiar, demanding voice jolted me awake. I trembled, staring in shock at my sister, Zoe. She was angrily running her hands through her hair, a messy suitcase at her feet. She'd searched everywhere but couldn't find the new blue swimsuit she'd bought just for this trip. My parents, having failed to find it, were trying to calm her down while also urging me to just go get it before Zoe started to cry. This was it. I shot a terrified look at the calm, blue ocean outside. My skin began to prickle, my breath hitched, and it felt like a giant hand was squeezing my heart and lungs. Down below, a little girl sitting on her father's shoulders was cheering about how beautiful the ocean was. It was all too familiar. All of it. I was reborn. Reborn on the day my family went to the beach. And reborn 4 hours before a 300-foot tsunami would hit. We had only been in the vacation condo for 10 minutes, and Zoe was already trying to force me to go get her swimsuit. I get carsick. I'd already thrown up twice on the way here. If I had to take a cab back by myself, a 4-hour round trip, the nausea would be unbearable. Last time, I refused. I told them I was carsick and that we could just buy Zoe a new one. The street was lined with shops. After all, my swimsuit was a cheap, $20 one they'd bought for me from a roadside stand. But my refusal was met with a barrage of criticism from my parents. Can you even wear those cheap things from the street? What if your sister has an allergic reaction? You're the older sister. What's wrong with helping her out? I think you're just being selfish and want to go swimming. You're so grown, yet so immature. They lectured me, as they always did, and then started their usual routine of comparing me to my sister. How Zoe was delicate and cute, while I was quiet and withdrawn. How Zoe was a smooth talker, while I was sullen and silent. All I could do was press my lips together and say nothing. Look at that dead look on your face, playing the victim again. No wonder you only got into a community college. Your sister is going to an Ivy League school after her scores. She's a future genius. And you? A community college kid? What's the point of you? Running errands is the most useful thing you can do, and you're not even willing to do that. My dad hated it most when I went silent, so his words grew more vicious. He'd completely forgotten why I ended up in community college. Or maybe he hadn't. Maybe he remembered that right before my SATs, he had to be hospitalized for drinking too much. My mom and sister both made excuses about being too tired to help, so I, the one about to take the most important exams of my life, had to take care of him. I was severely sleep-deprived and bombed the SATs. I only got into community college, and my family wouldn't let me retake the year. They wanted me to finish my degree as fast as possible, so I could get a job and start making money. No one in the family had forgotten. They just all thought it was perfectly reasonable. As long as my sister could get into a good university, that's all that mattered. As long as Zoe was happy, that's all that mattered. For instance, when Zoe wanted to go to the beach after the SATs, my parents immediately brought her. I even got to tag along. It was the first time in my 19 years of life that my family had ever taken me on a trip. Of course, I had to carry almost all the luggage. And now, I was expected to make a 2-hour drive back to get a swimsuit. Chloe, are you deaf? I told you to go home and get my swimsuit. Zoe's voice turned shrill when she saw me just staring into space. My thoughts snapped back to the present. A chill ran down my spine, and I instinctively moved away from the window. It felt as if the calm, peaceful ocean had already transformed into a monster bearing its fangs. Who would have thought that in just 4 short hours, a terrifying tsunami would surge from the deep and destroy everything? Chloe, this is your fault for not reminding your sister. Do you think she would have forgotten otherwise? Get going and get it now. My mom scolded, glaring at me. I took a deep breath, pulling myself out of my terror of the coming wave. I stared at my mother thinking, why should I have reminded Zoe? I didn't know she would forget. And besides, why is that my responsibility? The last time, I had argued back. And in response, my dad had lunged at me, slapping me so hard I fell to the floor. I told you to go, so go. What's with all the back talk? Can't you see your sister is upset? My dad had roared, pointing at me, completely ignoring the blood trickling from my lip. That slap was what finally broke me. For 19 years, I never understood what I did wrong, why my own family treated me this way. So I wailed, screaming and crying until I nearly passed out. Zoe just got more annoyed and stormed out of the condo. She went down to the beach to have fun, telling me to go get her swimsuit after I was done crying. She said she had to wear it tomorrow if not today, since they were staying for 3 days and 2 nights. My parents shot me disgusted looks. After kicking me a few times, they locked me in the room and told me I wasn't allowed out. Crying won't help you. Just stay here and think about what you did. You can come out when you're ready to go get the swimsuit. They left with a cold snort, locking the door behind them, as if I were just a piece of luggage, something to be casually tossed in a room. I hugged my knees, huddled in the condo, my heart dead, my shoulders shaking uncontrollably. It wasn't until evening that the calm ocean suddenly turned violent. The tide churned like boiling water, crashing toward the shore. By the time I realized what was happening, a 300-foot wave was charging toward the coast like a demon god. I screamed, frantically twisting the doorknob, trying to escape. But it wouldn't budge. My only choice was to rush to the window and scream for help. That's when I saw my parents, pulling Zoe into their car and speeding away. I saw it clearly. Before they got in the car, they looked up at me. It was only 3 floors up. They saw me, but they drove away without a second glance, disappearing in an instant. I died in a tsunami of apocalyptic proportions. Chloe, are you mute? I'm asking you one last time. Are you going to get my swimsuit or not? Zoe's voice cut through my memories for a 3rd time. She was completely furious now, her face red with anger. It was because I hadn't said a word. My dad was on his feet in an instant, his hand raised to strike me. The scene from my past life was about to repeat. I would be beaten, then locked in this condo to die. I quickly sidestepped and forced a smile. Zoe, don't be angry. This trip is all about you. I'll do whatever you say, sis. Then I looked at my dad. Dad, I can bring back that nice bottle of scotch too, so you can have some with dinner tonight. My dad's hand stopped midair. The anger on his face faded. That's more like it. Go on then. 4 hours round trip. You'll be back before it gets dark. We'll still have plenty of time to have fun. He lowered his hand and turned to Zoe. Zoe, don't be mad. Dad will take you for a ride on the jet ski later. I want to ride in the helicopter too, for pictures, Zoe demanded. I knew about the helicopter rides. They cost hundreds of dollars for 10 minutes. If I had ever dared to make such a request, my dad would have kicked me. But he immediately agreed to Zoe's request. My mom gave a thumbs up, beaming. Zoe, you're so brave, riding in a helicopter. Zoe preened, shooting me a triumphant glance. She was showing off the love she received. Meanwhile, all I had ever received was scolding and abuse. My heart still twisted with pain, but it quickly turned to cold indifference. Why would someone who's already died once care about such a pathetic scrap of affection? Mom, Dad, Zoe, you guys stay here and have fun. I'm going to get the swimsuit. I left obediently. My family was satisfied, ready to wait for my return in 4 hours. But they had no idea that in 4 hours, the tide would mysteriously recede, only to return with the force of the heavens. Maybe it was an undersea earthquake, or maybe a volcanic eruption. Whatever the cause, an unprecedented tsunami was about to obliterate this entire resort town. I remembered it clearly. The wave was taller than our condo building, at least 300 feet high. A 300-foot tsunami is a rarity in human history. The one in Indonesia in 2004 that shocked the world, affecting 14 countries and leaving over 270,000 people dead or missing, reached a maximum height of only 167 feet. Of course, terrain and elevation greatly affected tsunami's impact. The same wave might not cause the same devastation in a different location. But the coming tsunami was 300 feet high. Even if our city, a city, had high terrain with many hills and forests, a 300-foot tsunami, I couldn't let my mind dwell on it. The image of a living hell was already forming in my head. A sense of urgency washed over me. For hours. How was I going to survive? I had seen the tsunami with my own eyes in my past life. That monstrous, 300-foot wall of water was absolutely terrifying. So I had to plan for the worst-case scenario. That the entire city of a city, and even neighboring coastal cities, would be wiped out. Theoretically, if I could get on a plane and fly 1,000 miles away, I wouldn't have to worry about a thing. But there was no time for that now. It would be hard enough to even get out of a city. It was the day after the SATs ended, and the roads were clogged with traffic. We were stuck in traffic jams the whole way here. At this rate, I'd be lucky to get home in 2 hours. So, I couldn't just think about escaping. I needed to find a safe place nearby. A tall building seemed like a good option, but I immediately dismissed it. In the face of an apocalyptic tsunami like that, all buildings would seem laughably fragile. Even the tallest skyscraper could collapse in an instant. So the shelter had to be solid, and it had to be high. A mountain. On the eastern outskirts of a city was Fisherman's Peak, a scenic area with a maximum elevation of over 4,500 feet. It had good infrastructure and an old temple at the top where I could take shelter. I used to volunteer there, so I was familiar with the place. Best of all, it was only a 40-minute drive from here, and I could take the highway. It was 2 p.m. now. If I could get near Fisherman's Peak, I'd still have enough time to stock up on supplies to take up the mountain. That was it. That was my plan. With my plan set, I went downstairs. Just as I was about to call a car, I saw a construction worker walking by with a big tool bag. The bag was overflowing with nails. I stopped him and bought a bag of nails for $10. Then I walked over to the parking lot and found my family's car. After checking to make sure no one was around, I scattered the nails under all 4 tires, points facing up. The second they started the car, the tires would be punctured. The image of my family frantically trying to escape while their car's tires deflated was just too beautiful. I dusted off my hands and hurried on my way. I had to get to Fisherman's Peak, stock up, and get up that mountain. The car I called was speeding down the highway. I had hoped the highway would be clearer, but it was just as congested. A drive that normally took 40 minutes stretched into an hour and a half. I was getting anxious, praying the whole time for the traffic to move faster, just a little faster. Once we got off the highway, Fisherman's Peak was only 5 minutes away. I let out a breath of relief and checked the time. 3:35 p.m. I remembered the tsunami hit around 6 p.m. I still had 2.5 hours to prepare. I didn't need much, just enough food and water to last a week. After all, tsunamis hit hard but recede quickly. Once I survived the initial impact, I could just wait for the national rescue teams. It was a reluctant choice. If I had the chance, who wouldn't want to hoard more supplies just in case? But I was on my own with limited time and strength. Carrying a week's worth of supplies up the mountain was already my limit. As I was thinking, the car passed a residential area. I had the driver pull over and headed straight for the local supermarket. I bought a large backpack full of small, high-calorie items like canned food, jerky, and compressed biscuits. Then I filled a tote bag with bulkier things like self-heating rice meals, spicy fish, cured meats, and dried sweet potatoes. I could only take a small amount, but one big bag would have to be enough. Finally, I went to a nearby pharmacy and bought some common medicines like ibuprofen, amoxicillin, and cold medicine. By the end, with the pack on my back and a bag in each hand, my whole body ached. But this would be enough to last me a long time. If I was frugal, it would last for more than just a week. As for water, the most important thing, I only bought 3 bottles. 1, because it was too heavy, and 2, because Fisherman's Peak had a natural waterfall. I wouldn't be short on water. I double-checked my supplies, then called another car to take me straight to Fisherman's Peak. It was now 4:36 p.m. The tsunami would arrive in 1 hour and 24 minutes. Just then Zoe called. I answered. She immediately started ordering me around. Are you home yet? Remember to bring my sun hat, the white one. If you've already left, turn around right now. You have to bring my sun hat. Listening to Zoe's bossy tone on the phone, I couldn't help but laugh. It was a laugh of pure bitterness. She had treated me like her servant for over a decade. I had gotten used to it, always catering to her, giving in to her, terrified of making her angry and suffering the consequences. If I hadn't already died once, I would still be afraid. But now Zoe could no longer scare me. Of course, I didn't argue back. There was still over an hour until the tsunami hit. If I pissed Zoe off now, with her short temper, she might lose interest in playing and decide to come home to deal with me. If that happened, the three of them would have a much better chance of survival. Okay, Zoe. I'm turning around to get your hat now. I might be a little late getting back to the beach, okay? I replied, my voice sweet and obedient. Zoe let out a snort of laughter. I just love it when you're so pathetic. Keep it up. Beside her, my mom's voice cut in. Chloe, since you're making an extra trip anyway, you might as well bring my makeup bag. I wanted to bring it earlier, but it was too much trouble. I sneered inwardly but agreed out loud. Oh, Mom. I'll be there soon. That's right. Be a good girl, and everyone will be happy, my dad added, giving me a rare compliment. I was still sneering. After hanging up, the car arrived at the Fisherman's Peak scenic area. I didn't get out at the main entrance, but at the west gate. There was a staff path there. I used to take it when I was a volunteer. I looked up at the towering peak, a profound sense of security washing over me. There was no safer place than this. I took a deep breath and started up the mountain with my supplies. The guard in the booth was dozing off and didn't even notice me. It was probably because of the heat. The temperature was at least 85 degrees. Only a fool would go hiking in the middle of the day in this weather. As a result, I didn't see a single tourist on my way up. There were probably tourists, but they would be at the main entrance. I was panting, stopping every 10 steps. By the end, I was dizzy and my vision was blurry, but I finally made it to the halfway point. There was a plaza here, and a cable car station. Even though there weren't many tourists, the cable cars were running. I got on a car, wiping away my sweat and checking my phone. 5:26 p.m. 34 minutes until the tsunami. The sun was still beating down, and there was no wind on the mountain. There was no sign of the coming disaster. But my heart began to race. The apocalyptic feeling from my past life washed over me, a terrifying echo in my memory. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, feeling the breeze created by the moving cable car. I could faintly smell something unusual in the air. The tsunami had probably already formed in the deep sea. It just hadn't reached here yet. At 5:47 p.m., after the cable car took me on a scenic loop, I finally arrived at the summit. Before me was the ancient, quaint temple. The air shimmered under the direct sun, so there was still no one in sight. I didn't have time to look for anyone else. I found a side hall and slipped inside. It was a place for worship, dedicated to a celestial master. I used to dust his statue when I was a volunteer. I gave a small bow and sat down, feeling dizzy and weak. I was exhausted and overheated, but at least I had made it. I was sitting in a temple over 4,000 feet above sea level. I was completely safe. It was 5:52 p.m., 8 minutes until the tsunami. I twisted open a bottle of water and started chugging it down. And then, Zoe's call came again. The second I answered, Zoe started yelling. Did you break your legs? Why aren't you back yet? I want to wear my swimsuit and my hat and take pictures on the beach. I'm dying of impatience. My parents were chiming in from the background. The sun is about to set. Get back here now. We need to take pictures of your sister. A cold smile touched my lips. Sunset. Pictures? You're all about to die. With no more reason to hold back, I responded with a cathartic burst of glee. I'm not coming back to the beach. I'm at home, enjoying the AC. What? Zoe was stunned for a moment. Then she erupted. Chloe, are you messing with me? If you're not coming back, what about my swimsuit and my hat? Who's going to get them for me? Are you disabled? Do you need me to get everything for you? You're 18 years old, and you act like a child with a developmental disorder. I'm talking about your brain. Ah. Zoe was clearly baffled. The line went quiet for a second. Then I heard her roar, Chloe. What did you just say? Did you call me disabled? Did you say I have no brain? Her shout shocked my parents, who were right beside her. My dad snatched the phone, his voice dripping with menace. Chloe, you dare talk to your sister like that? Are you insane? My mom's voice crowded in. Chloe, what did you say about your sister? Say it again. Your sister is a disabled, brain-dead idiot. Disabled, brain-dead idiot. Disabled, brain-dead idiot. Disabled, brain-dead idiot. I said it many times. You Chloe. My mom completely lost it. The precious baby she had coddled for 18 years had never been insulted like this. Especially not by the family slave. My dad bellowed, Chloe, you just wait. I'm going to chop you up and feed you to the dogs when I get back. Click. I hung up. I wasn't listening to any more of that. I just had to wait for the last 3 minutes. It was 5:57 p.m. During those last 3 minutes, since I wasn't answering their calls, my family moved the battle to the group chat. A flood of texts and voice messages poured in. But I ignored them all, just watching the clock. 1 minute left. Zoe had completely lost her mind by now. She stopped cursing and instead started spamming the chat with pictures of the ocean, the beach, and selfies of herself. She tagged me in every single one. Chloe, you're so pathetic. Why am I the one having fun at the beach while you had to crawl back home? Chloe, you actually had some guts today, I'll give you that. Too bad the whole family hates you and is going to kill you. I've never been hit in my life, you know. Chloe, get your ass back here. Get back to the resort right now. I'm going to tear your fucking mouth off. I wanted to laugh. It was just too funny. An apocalyptic tsunami was 1 minute away, and here I was safe and sound in the best possible shelter, surrounded by a pile of supplies. And there was Zoe, having a meltdown on the beach, screaming like a shrew. I almost felt sorry for her. So I decided to comfort her. My dear Zoe, you must be thirsty after all that yelling. Why don't you have a nice big drink of seawater? After all, the tide was about to go out. If she didn't drink now, she'd miss her chance. The next second at 6 p.m., the evening sun suddenly dimmed. The group chat went silent. Zoe stopped her rant. My heart leaped. Was the tide starting its eerie retreat? Was that why my family had stopped harassing me? Unexpectedly, my dad sent me a private message. Chloe, you fucking went to Fisherman's Peak? I was wondering why you were taking so long. Are you sick in the head? Who goes hiking in this heat? I frowned. How did he know? A second later, a video call from him came through. I thought about it and decided to answer. I was curious, and I also wanted to witness the tsunami. The video connected, showing my parents and Zoe in the frame. They were sitting under a beach umbrella, still enjoying the gentle sea breeze. The tsunami hadn't come yet? My heart tightened. Did me being reborn change the timeline? Chloe, what are you doing at Fisherman's Peak? If I hadn't secretly put a tracker on your phone, I never would have found you. My mom yelled as soon as she saw me. It clicked. She could track my phone. Chloe, so you went hiking, huh? You really are a psycho going hiking in this heat, ha ha ha. Zoe wasn't even angry anymore, just mocking me. I get it now. We yelled at you, so you ran off to play by yourself. But you're so dumb you picked the hottest place to go. I didn't say anything, just watched the ocean on the screen behind them. It was still calm and blue, waves gently lapping. Could it be that there was no tsunami this time? Are you mute again? You think I'll let you off the hook just because you're hiding on a mountain? Let me tell you, when I get home, I'm going to break your legs. My dad was practically radiating malice. I had no doubt he would actually try to kill me. I remained silent, staring at the ocean, my heart pounding harder and harder. Finally, at 6:04 p.m., the water began to move strangely. Then it rapidly receded. Seeing this, I relaxed and couldn't help but smile. The timeline hadn't changed. I just couldn't pinpoint the exact time. My dear sister, you can still smile? Dad is going to kill you, Zoe sneered, but she was cut off. Because the beach had erupted into chaos. People were shouting in confusion. What the hell? Where's the water? My dad turned his head, his brow furrowed. Yeah, where did the water go? I'm going to check it out. He handed the phone to my mom. She took it, looking out at the ocean with the same bewildered expression. No one was paying attention to me anymore, but the video call was still on. Zoe suddenly gasped, "I read about this in a textbook. Don't you think it could be a tsunami?" Zoe figured it out instantly. But since she'd never seen one in real life, she didn't run. She just stood there gaping, even taking pictures. Up ahead, some lifeguards were waving their arms and shouting, "Get back, get back." Run. That single word, run, snapped a lot of people out of their daze. Some of the tourists started running back towards the land. People are like sheep. Once a few start running, the rest follow. The beach became a chaotic mess. My dad came rushing back and scooped Zoe into his arms. "Run. People are saying it's a tsunami." My mom, terrified, clutched the phone and sprinted after them. All I could see was a shaky, blurry mess of panicked crowds. I sighed to myself. These people weren't going to make it. Unless they were blessed with some kind of miracle and could outrun the tsunami in a car, they were all going to die. But today, with so many people in cars, the roads were gridlocked. Who could possibly outrun a tsunami? Even on a clear day, almost no one can outrun a tsunami. As I was thinking, my parents and sister reached the parking lot. At the same time, I heard a massive earth-shaking roar. It was the sound of the ocean's fury. Oh my God, the sea. Look. My mom shrieked, pointing at the ocean. My dad's voice was trembling too. "It's so high. Get in the car now." "Dad, let me get in first." Zoe's voice was tinged with tears as she scrambled into the car. The three of them piled into the vehicle like a panicked school of fish. As the phone shook, I finally saw it. A 300-foot wall of water stretched across the horizon, a monstrous dragon with no end in sight. The water was no longer blue, but a murky, churning blackish gray, like sludge from hell, surging relentlessly forward. Screams and cries echoed in the storm-force winds the wave brought with it. Swathes of people were pushed over and trampled in the stampede. It was a scene of utter devastation. Vroom. The car started. My dad gripped the steering wheel and slammed his foot on the gas. The car shot forward, only to be blocked immediately. The parking lot was pure chaos. Hundreds of cars were trying to escape at once. There was no way out. "Just hit them, Dad. Ram the car in front of us." Zoe screamed, trembling. My dad didn't say a word, but he floored it. I heard a loud crash. It seemed he had pushed the car in front of him out of the way. But then someone screamed, "Are you fucking crazy? Why did you hit us? My wife is pregnant. Honey, oh my God. Get out of the way." Zoe cursed, and my dad rammed the car again. It was a stroke of luck that their car had been parked near the exit. After hitting several cars and people, they miraculously made it onto the main road. "We're out. I'm speeding up, hold on tight." My dad roared, pushing the accelerator to the floor, no longer caring if he ran anyone over. Zoe looked back at the ocean and shrieked, "Faster. It's about to hit the shore." The tsunami was too fast. A 300-foot wave crashing onto land. How could anyone imagine such a horror? "This is as fast as it goes. Don't be scared, Daddy's here," my dad grunted, trying to reassure them. But a second later, he screamed as if he'd seen a ghost. "We have no air. What's happening? All 4 tires are flat." I laughed out loud. My dad had been in such a rush that he hadn't noticed the warning lights on the dashboard. It wasn't until he was on the main road that he realized something was wrong. Why were all 4 tires flat? My mom stammered, "Honey, don't joke around. Go faster." "Why are you slowing down? How the hell am I supposed to go faster? All the air is gone." My dad yelled, trying to accelerate, but the car just kept getting slower. The road was also filling with obstacles, luggage dropped by fleeing tourists, leaves and branches torn from trees by the wind, all blocking the car's path. If the tires had air, he could have just plowed through. But with no air, the car was easily stopped by the debris. Zoe started crying and, in a panic, grabbed the steering wheel. "Go faster. Don't you know how to drive?" It was a desperate move. Her sudden jerk of the wheel sent the car swerving into a palm tree. The 3 of them were thrown forward, nearly losing their lunch. "Zoe, are you crazy?" My dad yelled in a rage. He tried to reverse, but the car just whined and sputtered. He made a split-second decision and jumped out of the car. "Everyone out now," he shouted. No, I don't want to. I'm scared. Zoe wailed. My mom had to drag her out, asking my dad what they should do. Flag down a car. Flag one down. My dad screamed, waving his arms at the traffic. Help. Help us, please. Give us a ride. The entire road was a chaotic mess of speeding cars. No one was going to stop. I watched fascinated. This was more thrilling than any Hollywood movie. I sat cross-legged, sipping my water and nibbling on some spicy fish. Amidst the shaky camera footage, a car finally appeared, driving straight towards them. My dad's face lit up. Hey, friend, stop for a second. My mom also ran forward to block the car, pleading with the driver to stop. But not only did the car not stop, it sped up. The driver leaned out the window and screamed, "You son of a bitch. You're the one who hit my car and made my wife miscarry." It was the owner of the car they had rammed in the parking lot. The color drained from my dad's face, and he quickly dodged out of the way. But my mom wasn't fast enough. The car hit her, breaking her right leg. She collapsed to the ground, wailing in agony. The phone finally fell, the camera pointing up at the sky. I could hear my mom's cries. "It hurts. Honey, help me. Please help me." My dad ran over, his lips trembling. "Your leg is broken? Zoe, help your mother." Zoe immediately refused. "No way, Dad. Let's just run. The tsunami is coming. Forget about Mom." "Zoe, what did you just say?" My mom was so shocked the pain seemed to vanish for a second. Zoe's voice was hard. "Your leg is broken. How are we supposed to save you? It's your own fault for not getting out of the way. You." My mom probably never dreamed that her most beloved daughter would say something like that to her. There was no time to argue. My dad made his decision. He threw Zoe over his shoulder and ran toward a nearby building without a second glance back. By now, the roar of the tsunami was getting terrifyingly loud, like an apocalyptic beast closing in. I was so scared I almost dropped my spicy fish. But then I remembered. I was on a mountain. What was there to be afraid of? So I went back to eating my snack. The next moment, the camera's view shifted, and my mom's pale face filled the screen. In her final moments, she had somehow managed to remember the phone. She was propping herself up with one hand, dragging herself along the ground, clutching the phone with the other. She was screaming, "Chloe, I knew you were still there. Save me. Save your mother." I chewed my spicy fish and looked at her with a blank expression. What am I, a god? "Chloe, Mom was wrong. You got to the mountain ahead of time. You must have known the tsunami was coming. You have a way to save me." My mom was sharp. She had figured out my plan. Unfortunately, in a life or death situation, her mind was no longer clear. I really wasn't a god. I was powerless to help her. So I just shook my head. "I can't save you." My mom burst into tears, wailing inconsolably. "Chloe, Mom was wrong. I was so wrong. Zoe is a monster. I shouldn't have loved her. Chloe, save me. Mom will only love you from now on." She craned her neck, looking like a corpse crawling out of the water. I watched her in silence. 3 seconds later, the tsunami slammed down like a giant hand. Boom. Everything in the camera's view was obliterated. All that was left was a murky, swirling chaos, and then darkness. The video call ended. My heart clenched for a second. Then I let out a long, slow breath. "Mom, maybe in the next life, you'll be a better mother." After my mom was gone, I didn't lose my feed of the tsunami's chaos, because my dad and sister started spamming me with voice messages. I was surprised. Did they really have nothing better to do? I played one of my dad's messages. "Chloe, I made it into the hotel. I'm running to the roof. This hotel is over 300 feet tall. I'm taking your sister to the roof. Call 911 for help." I tried calling, but no one is picking up. Remember the hotel? I was speechless. This was an apocalyptic tsunami. What good would calling 911 do? Even the rescue helicopters wouldn't dare get close to the coast. Clearly, my dad had lost his mind. He was so terrified that I was the only person he could think to turn to. He had to beg me for help. Just as I expected, his pleas continued. "Chloe, you got to the mountain early. You must have known the tsunami was coming, right? What should I do, Dad? Is the hotel going to collapse?" When I didn't answer, he sent another. "My dear daughter, Dad really does love you. I'm just not good at expressing it. A father's love is silent. Don't be mad at your dad. I felt sick to my stomach. Fear really does drop your IQ to zero. Just like my mom, he thought that because I had escaped early, I somehow had a way to save them. But I didn't. I listened to Zoe's voice message next. Her voice was rushed and panicked, but she was forcing a sweet tone. Sister, I'm with Dad. Can you please think of a way to help us? The tsunami is almost here. I'm so scared. If I remembered correctly, she hadn't called me sister in over a decade. No, that's not right. She had called me that many times, but always dripping with sarcasm. Like, my dear sister, why are you getting yelled at again? Dearest sister, don't you want my new phone? Mom bought me the latest iPhone, you know. Sister, I actually really like you. Haha, just kidding. Things like that. There were too many to count. So I replied to her, my dearest sister, I do have a way to save you. But I'm not going to. Zoe fell for it. She continued to beg, pleading for me to save her life. I remained unmoved, smiling as I listened to her performance. Finally, she lost it again and reverted to her usual self, screaming, you bitch, are you messing with me? I'll fucking kill you. My dad was pretty much the same. He sent dozens of voice messages. I didn't listen to a single one. So just like Zoe, he became a mess of fear and rage, and completely lost it. Chloe, do you have a heart? We're your family. You knew the tsunami was coming and you just ran away by yourself. Are you even human? My dad was playing the family card. So I hit him with a royal flush. I don't have a family. Because you're all about to die. Chloe, you piece of shit. My dad's voice message cut off mid-sentence. The last few seconds were filled with the sound of churning waves and Zoe's terrified screams. Evidently, the tsunami had reached the hotel. Just when I thought it was all over, Zoe sent one last voice message. You bitch, I'll haunt you even as a ghost. The building is collapsing. Chloe, you'll die a horrible death. The message ended with a deafening crash, mixed with the sounds of waves slamming into walls, glass shattering, and the building groaning as it tilted. And then it was over. I, the one who was supposed to die a horrible death, was still alive. And that loving, happy family was dead. All of them. 13. My phone went silent. I walked out of the temple and stood on the viewing platform, looking out in the direction of the ocean. I was probably about 20 miles from the coast, so I couldn't see the ocean itself, nor could I see the waves yet. But the air was vibrating intensely, and a strange, salty, fishy smell had already spread all the way to Fisherman's Peak. The peak itself was now in an uproar. I finally saw some of the other tourists. They were staring at their phones, their faces filled with shock and terror. There was a tsunami. They're saying the wave was 300 feet high. Do you think it will reach us? We're not that far from the resort. It's over. The resort was packed with tourists today. Oh God. A thick, anxious tension filled the air, and soon, that anxiety exploded like a thunderclap in everyone's hearts. Because on the horizon, as far as the eye could see, a black line of water appeared. It was the flood surge, the tsunami's inland rush, and it was heading straight for the city of a city. Oh my God, run. Many people screamed, starting to scramble down the mountain in a mindless panic. Fortunately, someone with a clear head yelled at the top of their lungs, don't go down. Everyone stay on the mountain. This is the safest place. The chaotic crowd surged toward the summit. Some were on their phones, calling their families, telling them to run for their lives. Others were desperately calling for help, the sound of busy signals filling the air. I stared at the approaching black dragon, my heart cold with a mix of dread and resignation. The temple priests came out, urging everyone not to stand on the peak, because a tsunami of this size would bring hurricane-force winds. So everyone crowded into the temple for shelter. I went back to my own little sanctuary. I had already hidden my supplies behind the Celestial Master's statue, only taking them out when I needed to eat. A few moments later, a deafening roar ripped through the air, as if the sky itself was being torn apart. A furious wind, mixed with a thick rainy mist and the terrifying floodwaters, slammed into Fisherman's Peak. The entire mountain seemed to tremble, and my heart trembled with it. But I knew Fisherman's Peak would not fall. The sound of the roaring water was relentless. The entire city of a city was submerged. A torrential downpour began, and the air was filled with particles of sea mud, casting a hazy, dreamlike pall over everything. After nightfall, visibility dropped even lower, but the sound of the surge had noticeably quieted. A normal tsunami might last for an hour or two at most. Even a 300-foot one couldn't last forever. The water was now in its receding phase. The sea was reclaiming its own. But the damage was done, and it was irreversible. I lay down on a prayer cushion behind the statue and drifted into a fitful sleep. It wasn't a peaceful rest. I was plagued by nightmares. I dreamed I was being swallowed by the tsunami again, suffocating, my skin freezing cold. But just as I was about to die, two strangers with blurry faces were trying desperately to save me. A man and a woman, fighting for my life. In my dream, I cried out, "Mom, Dad." I woke with a start, tears streaming down my face. The faceless mother and father were gone. I sat there for a long time, completely still. The dream was a reflection of my own heart, wasn't it? I longed for my parents' love, but the parents in my dream had no faces. Because the parents with faces, my real parents, had never loved me. They would never enter my dreams. I shook my head and stood up, my heart as hard as stone. The sun was rising outside. Helicopters were circling in the sky, their loudspeakers broadcasting words of encouragement. To all citizens, the tsunami has receded. Please do not panic. Rescue teams have been deployed. Please remain orderly. The tourists ran to the edge of the peak, waving their arms, crying with joy. Many more scrambled down the mountain, desperate to find their families. I looked down at the world below. All I could see was an endless expanse of yellow water. It was seawater, now receding. After it was gone, all that would be left was a landscape of devastation, flooded rivers and fields and bodies. The rescue teams were indeed here. Helicopters and lifeboats were already in action. I had to laugh at myself. I had been so worried, stockpiling all those supplies for nothing. The sun was out. I wouldn't be needing them. 3 months later, life in the coastal region had mostly returned to normal. I was called to the police station several times, always to identify a body. But it was never one of my family members. My family was probably pulverized by the wave, or dragged out to sea. Either way, I would never see them again. I couldn't even give them a proper burial. Their estate naturally passed to me. A condo, 3 commercial properties, and an apartment building they rented out. Oh, and $3.8 million in savings. In a city like a city, assets like these were enough for me to live however I wanted. I found myself quietly wondering for a long time why my family, who had so much money, had treated me the way they did. They wouldn't even buy me a decent swimsuit, just a cheap one from a roadside stand. It wasn't that I minded the cheap swimsuit. It was, why did my sister get a brand name one that cost over $300? In the end, all I could do was rub the ache in my chest and force myself to let it go. Some parents are just born biased. Or maybe, they're just born without a heart. But I had a heart. That's why I was always trapped in a cycle of pain and despair, desperate for even a single drop of love to fill it. So childish. Chloe, from now on, just love yourself. The end.